I'm going to look at the product first. And I'm going to show you something I'm really excited about. I've been exclusively working on this with the team for the past 4 months. And we're going to start with our new AI agent experience in Dremio, which is going to be released in the next 2 or so weeks. My team hates it when I give dates like that, but I'm pretty confident they're going to get there. So let's watch. This is from a bike-sharing customer with bike-sharing data set. And me as an analyst, I'm starting with, I actually don't even know what's in the data. So in natural language, in the Dremio embedded agent, I'm asking it, give me an overview of the ride-sharing data set. And so our agent has access to tools, like our semantic search tool, to go find the information. And it has access to running SQL, obviously. It translates the natural language question. And then it goes and collects some statistics automatically about this data set. So it queries the columns, it tells you about what they are. And what's really cool is in the middle, it actually also tells you about quality, right? It says, hey, there's nulls, and you can use nullif to go sort that out. Next, let's dig deeper. Let's go ask a particular question. And in this case, I want the total number of rides across average trip duration. So again, it takes that, translates it into SQL, and gives you a summary. Next, let's do a deeper dive. What if I wanted a visualization? I wanted to see some deeper analysis about the data. And in this case, we want a chart that slices across time and shows you trip volume. There you have it, right in the platform, at your fingertips. Ask questions, get answers, gain insights, take action, right then and there. Now, what if I wanted to slice this across the type of bikes people are renting? No problem, just ask the question. And more importantly, you can tell it what type of visualization you want. In this case, I want a bar chart. And so, it again, goes figures out the SQL, and here shortly is gonna come back. And the other thing I wanna point out is, if you notice the tool calls, it actually describes what it's doing. It's not just saying, I'm looking for data sets or I'm executing SQL. The agent returns in natural language the action that it's taking. Why is that important? We put a lot of thought and code into making sure that you have visibility into what's happening, so you have trust in the result. So there you have it. You have visualization, you have summary. My belief, I was an early employee at Tableau before I joined Dremio. My belief is dashboards are going to become ephemeral like this, because it's really, really easy to create. Why do I need another tool to go and ask these questions? I can ask in the platform, get the dashboards I care about, share them. When I'm done, I get rid of them. And so this is what we've been working at very, very diligently. It's going to be released in the next few weeks. Really, really excited to introduce this. And that brings us to the theme today. Enabling the Agentic Enterprise. Now, what do I mean by that? But first, my name is Rahim Bojani. Welcome to Subsurface Nuremberg. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for the data team for hosting us. I've been here only 1 day, but I love this city. It's really historic looking. I wish I had more time. Maybe I'll come back soon. So let's start here. This slide is very important to me. And it sets a frame of reference about AI and what we're talking about. For hundreds of years, for about 100 years, science fiction authors have, I believe, conditioned us to adopting AI. From Frank Herbert's Dune to Isaac Asimov's I, Robot, right, which gave us the 3 moral laws of AI. The book Neuromancer was the basis of the movie Matrix, one of my favorite movies. And so we are very familiar by reading these things about how AI is supposed to work. And today, this is becoming real. Now, why is that relevant? If I look at sort of the history of computing, software 1.0 in the 70s, right? The advent of computers and automation from that innovation, that curve was somewhat flatter. Then in the 2000s, you had software 2.0, which was the cloud adoption. And so you went from waiting for 9 months to buy hardware, add more capacity, build more applications, to minutes, where you can spin something up in the cloud, and there you go. You have that much more productivity. But what's different now is in the cloud transformation, who really cared about that? It's the IT department. And like you had to manage your servers, you had to fight for more capacity. It wasn't like your CEO or your CFO banging the drum, hey, go to cloud. In fact, nowadays, there's a reversal happening as well, right? But with AI, I believe it's going to be different. With the advent of ChatGPT in November 2022, everybody's exposed to it. Everybody's wanting it, right? Everybody's finding value in it. So that adoption curve, I think, is going to be tremendously steep. Now, we all have a decision to make. Are we going to be at the forefront of that adoption curve and guide ourselves and our organizations in that direction? Or are we going to sit behind and see how things go and be dictated? I know what I want to do. I want to be ahead. And so that's why I spend a lot of time learning new tools. Now, I painted a beautiful picture, but in reality, we all know AI hallucinates, does dumb things, and so you put in what you get. And so there's a study by MIT about 3 months ago. They surveyed a whole bunch of enterprises. 80% of those enterprises had generative AI projects, but only 5% value was achieved. And this is real, right? Because we're really early in that adoption cycle. We're going to talk about the adoption cycle. But there was another metric, another statistic in that study. And that statistic was 55% of the individuals surveyed were buying personal subscriptions to ChatGPT and Claude to use it directly. Not the enterprise solutions that were provided, but to use it directly. So I have a very concrete story that relates to this. My father-in-law, back in the US, he's a neurologist. And so one day he calls me and goes, Rahim, this AI thing, why is everybody talking about it? It's really stupid. So I said, what happened? Like, why are you so upset? So he has an electronic medical record system that he bought from a vendor. And they're like, oh, we got the newest, latest AI functionality. We can help you write emails. And so he says, I'm a doctor, I know how to write emails. Why is this? It's not useful. So vendors are trying to scope the experiences for a variety of valid reasons and expose them to their customers. And this study shows that's backfiring. And so our view has always been, we don't want to limit the power of foundation models. Rather than we want to expose that to our end users so they can build the solutions they care about. They can do the things they care about, just like the demo we just showed. You can iteratively ask questions and interact and sort of get better and be more productive. And so for my father-in-law, I asked him, I said, hey, what's your biggest problem? He goes, scheduling. People cancel, I have people on the wait list, I have to do all this manual work to make that work. So I got a ChatGPT, I hooked up to his Google Calendar, and we literally solved that problem in 30 minutes. And so that is a concrete example of what's actually happening right now. And so when we talk about the battery is running low, plug in your PC. My clicker's died. And so this is another nice slide. We went on Reddit and we collected a bunch of memes, right, from data engineers. And you guys know this, right? Data is messy. The world we work in is messy. One of my banking customers in the US said, hey, everybody has an AI budget and they've been given a hammer and they're walking around their organization looking for a nail to hit. Okay? And so that's sort of the world we're living in, right? Give me AI, but hey, my data is in such a mess, I can't actually do anything with it. So what does this mean, right? Like we're in an AI maturity cycle, and I think about that in these 4 stages. So the story I told you about my father-in-law and the MIT study shows we're in that stage 1, individual productivity. Tools are really accessible. You put in what you get, and you're trying to sort of learn from, hey, I need recipes to, I'm building a patio extension in my house, so I want to learn how decking is laid down. And now I don't Google search, I ask ChatGPT, right? And so this is where we are today. From there, stage 2 is going to be enterprise sort of wide, and so you're going to have tooling with right side of sort of components, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then from there, we'll go to automation, individual automation, and then Agentic Enterprise. So you'll have tools that make you more productive, more better at what you do, augment your own sort of capabilities. So let's dive into that. Now, the underpinnings of all this is the Open Lakehouse platform. You have open source technologies like Iceberg, Apache, Polaris, Arrow. That's the fundamentals of Dremio, right? We've been investing in this for a really long time. And again, without this, these solutions, these capabilities don't scale, right? And that doesn't change. Second, and this is really another sort of revolution that I'm seeing now, is unstructured data has really opened up. And so you have structured data, but then you have PDFs for invoices, you have investment reports. It used to take hours to weeks sometimes to extract the right information. And later on, you'll hear from Isha what we've done in our platform to make unstructured data into structured data more accessible throughout. More importantly, you have real-time access requirements. You have, the accuracy of the data. You have trust, right? Governance is super important here in the EU. You'll hear from Daniel and Marcel, our partners at Stackit, what they're doing to make sure that everything is verifiable and trusted. And we'll talk about some of the capabilities within the platform. So these are the underpinnings. Now, what does it take for a data platform to meet these requirements? And more importantly, in this age of AI, how does that change? And so first, we'll talk about complete. Now, we surveyed about 1,011 directors of data and above. And we asked them, hey, what's your biggest problem in the age of AI? And they said unified access. Right? We need a platform that allows us to see all our data assets no matter where they are. And that's been our Dremio's point of view since the inception of Dremio. And so that's super important. Be it humans, be it BI tools, be it AI. You need to have access to data. You need to have now, it's more important now that all data is first class, meaning structured data, PDFs, images, they all have to be available the same way. Why do I have to do extra work to do it? And finally, zero copy, talking about governance, right? When I was at Tableau, Apple was a huge customer of ours. Apple's a customer of ours even today at Dremio. Their analysts would extract data in Tableau, and at any given point in time, they had 65,000 extracts active. And their governance department would have a nightmare because they didn't know if the analysts were making decisions on the most up-to-date, correct information. This is why a Lakehouse platform, which virtualizes the data, is so important because you can do both. You can do self-service, and you can have the scale you want without having those type of governance elements. So that's the complete bucket. Like, that doesn't change regardless if it's AI or humans. You have to have those capabilities in the platform. Contextual. Now, this topic is where I've spent the last 4.5 months with my teams directly. What do we mean by that? Today, semantic layers, or semantic meaning of data, is the domain of the human, right? It's in your head. What does ARR mean? What is the fiscal year? Is it January to December? Is it February to January? Right? And so you always have to go define this. And you usually define it in a BI tool or a third-party tool. I believe this will now become part of the data platform. And it will become, this layer will become interoperable. So you can then use it with whatever tooling that you're using. Why is this important? So we ran an experiment. We hooked up Claude, and we created 2 schemas. One with good names, customers, relationships, customers, revenue, orders, and one with bad schemes. I'm sure most of you are familiar with messy data, right? And so we give it column A, B, C, D. And we crafted a prompt that forced a 3-way join. And in the good schema case, Claude took 6 attempts to get the right query. In the bad schema case, it took 10 attempts. Then we introduced the notion of relationships. We said this column is related to this column. In both cases, bad and good schema cases, Claude was able to get the query in 4 attempts. So 250% improvement in the messy database. I was recently talking to a customer. They have 3,000 sales tables. So how is the AI agent supposed to figure out which one to use? This is why this layer that we're building, we're going to add a knowledge graph in the platform. You'll be able to define entities. You'll be able to define relationships within those entities. You'll be able to describe what those entities are, be it column or business metrics. We expect to get a preview out early next year, and you can also use AI to produce this layer. You don't have to do it yourself, so humans will be in the loop, but I think this is one of the most important things for adopting AI experiences. You're going to need a way to store meaning and context. Let's talk about governance. As I said, it's a really important topic. We have all kinds of tooling already built into the platform, and we're continually investing in making it better. So fine-grained access control, lineage tracking. Again, not only important for governance, but important for AI, to be able to tell what happens to a column, who's using it, where is it being used. Policy enforcement, right? So you can only access the things you are allowed to access. And similarly, if the AI is working on your behalf, it has to follow the same restrictions. And then automation. This is a very important topic. The biggest benefit of a Lakehouse platform is also its biggest drawback. And by that I mean, storage and compute is segregated. You own storage, and then therefore you have infinite scale. But the biggest drawback is you own storage, which means layout has to be managed. Do I partition or not? Do I have a big file? Do I have a small file? You have to think about that. And if you don't do that properly, then performance suffers. Our goal has always been, we want to abstract that away from the users. We want to give you the same data warehouse experience where storage is proprietary and they manage it on the Lakehouse. That's why reflection is our core IP, and earlier this year we introduced autonomous reflections, and that looks at your query history and automatically materializes and obviously rewrites the query, abstracting that away from you. You ought to also introduce clustering. So now you can specify keys that are important to you, so day, month, hour, and we'll sort the data behind the scenes in that way, and so the queries get that much more performance. It's a huge area of investment for us, and we'll continue to sort of build all that out to give you that autonomous experience for managing your data. Now expanding this out further in the future, and I'll talk about what I mean by agents here in a second, but you can have sub-agent, right? You could have a quality agent that checks for PII. You can have a compliance agent, right? And I'll touch on that in a second. But this is more about how we see the future going. You will have components within the platform that help you do your job better. So these are the summarizing, right? Completeness, a unified access platform that lets you access all your data assets wherever they may reside. Context, so the business meaning is right there within the platform, so you don't have to go anywhere else. Governance built in, so you have auditability, you have security, you have lineage, and automation. Now, the world is changing. On the right-hand side, you used to do tasks that would take you weeks and months. 20 years ago, my first job, I was an intern working for a wood products company in Canada. And my job was to create crystal reports. I don't know if very many of you know it or not, but that thing sucked. And so my VP of analytics would say, I want this report. And I would get a spec for him, it would take a week. I would build the report, take me 2 weeks, align the headers and tables. It was so hard. And then I would go, I'd be proud, I'd say, here you go. And he goes, I need one more column. Man, I'm now going to spend another week and add that column, right? When I joined Tableau, that changed. Now that guy the VP of analytics could do that himself. But that created silos. In this new world, you can automate some of these rote tasks, as we saw in the demo. Right? You have agents that are available 24/7 as your personal assistant. You can now do tasks that you may not technically know how to do, but you know the domain, you know the data, you know the result you want. A very concrete example here is Gio, my data engineer. He's based out of Lisbon. He spent 3.5 weeks building a dashboard for me that tracks our telemetry metrics from software. Who's using the software, when they're logging in, how many reflections did they create. And so we get this data in bronze, just raw format in Iceberg, and then we build silver and gold layers on top to get this information. So I wanted to run an experiment. I wanted to run an experiment to see if I can mimic what he did in short amount of time. So I asked him, and this is the advantage I had. Now, of course, this would take longer if I had to discover what we wanted in the end, but I asked him, I said, give me the spec. What did you accomplish in these 3.5 weeks? I was able to do what he did in 3 hours using the agent. We queried the raw layer. I asked it to give me data hygiene and data consistency problems. So went and looked, and it says, hey, 15.5 million records for the month of August. 1.5 million of those are missing cluster ID. You need to go run your backfill process to go complete your data set. Automatically. Now imagine, those of you that go inspect this data, how long would it have taken you to discover that? So that is the power, that is available to you now. Now, there's 2 sort of camps in the industry. There's one camp, right, that says everybody can become a generalist now. It doesn't matter what your role is, you can do all these tasks because AI can enable you. So a product manager can become a dev because AI can write the code for you. A designer can become a product manager because AI can go validate what you're designing. A data engineer can be an analyst, and so on. So that's one camp. Everybody's a generalist. The other camp is AI as an amplifier. Is you as an expert get that much better. You automate the things that you don't like to do. I live in that camp, and I'll give you a concrete example. And it's really about adoption and trust. About some of my devs are here. You can ask them. About 18 months ago, I told them, you must use AI. And I don't know if you know about devs, but they're the most skeptical people in the world. Right? It's like, I can do this better. I don't need some AI agent to tell me what to do. Right? But I said, no, you got to go use these tools. And my lead architect, Scott, what he did was he ran an experiment. He asked Claude, he said, hey, I know this module of code really well. Go explain it to me. And actually did a really good job. This is how you build trust. Then he went and demoed it to the rest of the organization. And now, today, fast forward 1.5 years, 87% of the team uses AI. And they've automated all the rote part of their jobs, library upgrades and unit tests and things that they don't like to do. And so, this was a surprise to me. I didn't know what to expect going in. I just wanted the team to experiment. What we realize is our best people are even better. And that's the potential that you have. I believe sort of the data market, the data analyst, data engineering market is where my team was 1.5 years ago. I think that adoption curve is coming. And so, in this final section, I'm going to talk to you about a concrete use case. Unfortunately, we don't have a demo for this because it's an early adopter customer that's been working with us. So there's a bank in the US that is a bank of banks. Other banks go to them to get money for loans. They have a workflow, it's called the credit authorization method. And so what happens is bank A, gets either a high net worth individual or a commercial entity. And they ask for a loan. And they fill out an application. And then that first bank, what they do is they take other information about that individual, their transaction history, whatever was in the CRM software, and they package it, both structured and unstructured as PDFs, and they submit it to our customer, the second bank. And what that second bank then does is they then do further background. If it's a commercial entity, they'll get some background information, they'll buy some reports, and then they combine that. So their analysts, what they told us, spend 5 hours per application to come to a decision if they're going to issue that loan or not. And so now, through some of the new functionality that Isha is going to talk to you about here in a second, they were able to automate that from 5 hours to 5 minutes. And the way it worked is they drop this package on S3. We would use our new AI generate function, part of SQL, to extract and parse those PDFs, extract the structured information out of it, combine it with the Iceberg tables that contain transaction information about that entity, the customer, and then create the views. And the end result is this memo. And this memo is then issued back to the first bank and the loan is released. They did this through MCP as a way to automate that workflow. Concrete example, in production, saving them tons of time. Now, so what did they achieve, right? They went from weeks of work when you combine the number of applications that they're receiving to just minutes of actions, right? You go from data's everywhere, it's messy, it's manual, to unifying everything in one place, leaving a digital trail so you can audit it and figure out what happened, and then make decisions right away. And so I'm going to leave you with this sort of final slide. In the next couple of weeks in the new version of Dremio, what we've done is we built the analyst agent. And what do I mean by an agent? An agent has a system prompt which tells it what it can do. It has tools that it uses, think of them as APIs, to accomplish the task it has. And then it has guardrails. Hey, you can do this, but you can't do that. So for the analyst agent, it's a read-only agent. You can't write it, and that's the demo we showed. The next one we're going to build is the engineering agent, so which we're experimenting with. And then we'll have a security and sort of Dremio administration agent. And in the middle, you'll have an orchestration system, which takes a prompt and decides which one to call. And more recent research coming out of the Frontier Lab shows that the more scope these agents are, the better the result. The broader the system prompts, the broader the context, the more sort of hallucinations and unexpected results they get. So that's the pattern we're expecting to adopt and build out. And so, in summary, the Agentic Enterprise requires an Agentic Lakehouse. A lot of the core components don't change, but with the advent of AI, we can go faster, you can get smarter, and it's just about how structured your thinking is and how fast you want to drop things. This brings my time with you to a close. Thank you so much.